guys, if you're here and I'm not interacting with you. Sorry, just sending out some quick tweets. Since I haven't streamed in quite some time. Oh, we actually have 2 viewers too. Say hi if you want. This is going to be a pretty interactive stream here. What are we under for? Okay, talk shows, I guess. I don't know what else this would be. But basically what I'm going to be doing is I had to reload my laptop. It had the 100% disk use issue, and then it had Squares and I fixed that. There's a couple things you can do to mitigate that. The easiest is by far just re-upgrading Windows to the latest version, or going to the latest version if you haven't already. So that's what we did. Ended up getting that, but then I used it for a bit, and I was getting 100% CPU use, which is another glitch with Windows 10. The 100% disk use stems all the way back to the 8 to 8.1 upgrade. It happens during the full upgrade process. You know, like when 8 to 8.1. Then the latest one is April 2018 update. Previous one is fall creators, and there was creators update, anniversary update, that sort of thing. During those, you get that 100% disk use. I actually had it on at the time when we went to 8 to 8.1. 2 of my 3 systems that I had at the time got hit with that 100% disk use, and initially I thought it was just an AMD thing. I saw a lot of systems that were AMD ones with that, and my first one that got hit was the first gen AMD APU. So we're talking like FM1. Like that system's still kicking as my dad's home theater PC. It's a nice system for that. But I got hit by that. So I thought, and the other system that the other 2 systems actually I had seen hit by that were both AMD. Then later, one of my systems got hit with, like I had at the time my desktop, and then I think that was X79, and then I had Poison Ivy. I forgot who ended up getting that system. I think it's gone around to a couple different people, and now Lance might have that. I forget. But that one, Poison Ivy, which is a Z77 platform, oh, there's a Gertrude. Hey, Gertrude. She's right there. You can probably see her tail a little bit. That had the old... actually, let me move. If you guys are talking in chat here. Pop this up over here. All right. That got hit by 2. 3570K Z77 platform. Luckily, my main desktop has never been hit by that. But yes, we got the 100% CPU glitch, which I still don't really know what that's from. But I'm really sick of getting all these like broken parts of Windows, so I decided quick before I head over to, on this Wednesday, I'm going to be heading out to, flying out to Portland to meet one of my buddies, Adrian. And my excuse for kind of doing this is the Pillows concert, since they're having a tour. And they're not stopping the Midwest at all. So I kind of use it as an excuse to get out there, or to basically travel a bit, since I saw them in 2007. I think that was the last time they actually had a tour in the U.S. They might have been there, in between then. So I'm going to be heading out there. And then I'll also be taking a train over to Seattle, because I got a bunch of people over there I know. Actually, some local friends live there as well. But I need my laptop working for that, and I'm just too sick of fixing it, essentially. And Windows keeps corrupting itself in one way or another. I just said, it's time for a clean install. In order to do a clean install, you need drivers. And hopefully you can see this pretty well here. What we have... Also, let me know what the stream is. I'm doing 1920 by 1080, 30 frames a second at 2000 kbit. I forget what the max is. I could probably raise it up, though, because I do have 20 up now. Like 20 megabit up. and 2000 kbit is 2 up. So whatever the max is for a non-partnered, non-whatever streamer, I could probably do. I don't know if I could change that in real time, but it's something I should probably look into in the future. But we got his top box up there is my current folder right here. This is my new folder. You can kind of see up top. The bottom one is the old one. So it's a copy of the old one technically. So it's 3.3. What I'm doing is I have this folder here, so I update them in the new folder, and then I delete the old folder out here. These are captured from my main 4K screen. I could also put up my downloads folder, but I don't know if you really need to see that necessarily. But they're gonna all dump into there, and then I copy them and possibly rename them in this folder. The nice thing is that when doing a lot of systems at once, you can just, as long as it's Intel, AMD, same-ish generation, most times you can reuse it. I've gotten, as you can see, this folder's getting pretty low, so and like I said, this is more of a test stream. Yeah, I was gonna do this the other night. I didn't really have the energy to, and now we're on here giving this a shot. These two folders are on my main 4K. This guy's on my left, 1920 by 1200 in portrait. I guess you don't need to like 1000% see what's going on. Normally, I would like if I was recording this, I am recording it locally, but if I wasn't streaming, I'd do 4K. That way you could make it bigger if you needed to. But this is kind of like where I get my stuff. So right now I have Realtek up. www. Make sure you do the www. It's www.realtek.com.tw. This is where you get your Realtek LAN, your Realtek audio, your Realtek card reader, your Realtek camera. The Realtek makes a lot of things. Audio is probably the most common. On laptops, card reader is also very common. This one also happens to have a Realtek camera on it. Then we have Intel. It's an Intel, it's a good question. What is it? It is I know it's Core i3. I know that much. Oh, for those wondering, we will pop to the main screen here. Here she is. It's a ThinkPad 13 first gen. I did custom carbon fiber skin on the backside here because I got sick of seeing a silver ThinkPad. ThinkPad should not be silver. It is a first gen. The reason why it's first gen is there's some graphical scaling going on right now, which is pretty not cool. I could definitely do 10. It does 10. I upgraded the 1080p screen, so 14 inches. ThinkPad 13, 14 inch. No, do it again. And they want to run 150% scaling on a 1080p screen at 14 inches. I can read 1080p 14 inches from lap distance away, so I don't know what they're thinking. But why I had this was to figure out what it was. It is a 6100U. I actually down-spec'd it to what Lenovo was trying to sell at the time, and I got it for $450. I could have made it $400, but I wanted Windows 10, or was it 10 at the time? Did it ship with 10? It just says Windows Pro, so yes, I think it shipped with Windows 10. And I wanted Windows 10 on it. Whoops. Let's bring that back up for you. I wanted Windows 10 on it, so I spent the extra $50 to get I wanted Pro on there, sorry. For networking stuff, mostly. Now there's tons more benefits nowadays having Pro Windows 10. You can stay one upgrade behind, generally. You can delay it by up to a year. I haven't actually seen it allow me to delay for a full year. 6 to 8 months delayed, so you can usually stay one upgrade behind. That's really helpful for stability. Also, you stay 30 days. You can stay up to 30 days behind on security updates. Also good for stability. You can make it remind you more. I think even normal Windows 10 lets you schedule when it does restarts now. Otherwise, this had it first. There's a lot of benefits that besides the networking, remote desktop, which is what I would like it, or what I bought it for. And if you're wondering why I have an i3 in my laptop, it's because at the time the i3, i5, i7 in that laptop all dual core hyper-threaded. That was when they introduced hyper-threading to i3. So realistically, minus speed, like as in like gigahertz, they're the exact same. I also popped 32 gigs of RAM in there. This was before the RAM cranked up in price, so it wasn't actually all that much more on sale to go to 32 from 16. I had it shipped with like 4 to get it to that low of a price, if I recall. Maybe 8. But yeah, I basically down-spec'd it as much as I could. It would not let me ship with a 128 gig SSD because I knew I would put a 512 since it can only have one storage device. Yeah, I quite like it, even though it's like people are like, oh, it's an i3, yada yada yada. It works well for me. An i3 actually, with how much Adobe is integrating in the Intel graphics due to Apple, I can do all like basic, photo editing. I used it, especially in school, a lot with when I say Photoshop, Lightroom, Illustrator, InDesign. So a lot of 2D stuff there, and it can also do Premiere fairly decently. I haven't edited 4K on it yet, but 1080p it was fine. It was obviously slow because remember it's an i3, but I have enough RAM, and I have 512 gig. It's not NVMe. What's really weird now is that they did actually add in the BIOS NVMe options. So it seems like that system is capable of NVMe, but the M.2 slot that they installed on it is not NVMe. So it kind of bugs me a bit. But so what we have here on the bottom is we have our these are the stuff that we need to get stuff with. Additional devices. We got I'm gonna have to find that. We got the stuff we need. Additional devices is things I've added or changed. And then utilities, obviously utilities. Chipset. Let's take care of that Samsung SSD. It looks like I'll probably be streaming until Squares pops in. Isn't there a way to see who's actually in the chat? I guess not. But yeah. So we have on the bottom here, or at bottom here, we have that we're searching for Samsung Magician. You want the download website, not this is kind of like their advertising one on top here. You want the second one. I'm trying to remember if I actually updated the BIOS or not on my, because I have a 850 EVO M.2 512, which is different. It's still SATA, but it's M.2. I would love to put an NVMe in there, and I actually tried, but the literal slot is not wired up for it. The BIOS supports it. There's other weird things with the ThinkPad 13, like it has a chip for a LAN controller, like an Intel LAN, but there's no port on it, and there's no way to adapt that to a port. It's just on the chip. And I thought it might go to the dock, because I did buy the dock. That has its own, at least as far as I can tell. Like, I can disable the Intel onboard one, and the dock's LAN works fine. So I have no idea as to what is going on there. If running Y for a SO-DIMM M.2, why I went with a EVO or a Samsung drive, it's because of how I think they don't make a Pro. I'm pretty sure they don't make a Pro, but it does a very good job with emulating its TLC as SLC for a small chunk. When you have enough space free on the drive, it'll emulate up to a certain amount. That started with the OG even 840 EVO. That was like one of their big implementations on there. And then also there's the rapid RAM caching, which will make this feel much quicker. So that's why I like EVO drives as boot drives. As non-boot drives, not too particularly they're not too particularly good because they cost more than, say, a OCZ. Like, I like the OCZ Trine 150. I don't know what the equivalent now is. Or like your more standard ones that don't rely on that trickery, because I think they work better. I think they work better when you use them not as boot drives. So it's like an editing drive. You're running them in RAID. EVO drives are not designed for that. Where they gain all their speed is in their trickery. Like their little, like, they're caching, they're running TLC NAND as SLC NAND, which does wear it more, but it's significantly more responsive. And then that rapid RAM caching. So perfect boot drives as long as you're not running RAID on that controller. But if you're running like video editing off of like I use Intel Smart Response, which you can use part or up to 64 gigs of SSD or of an SSD to cache the boot drive, or not cache the boot drive, to cache a hard drive, or key thing here, an array of drives. So it's kind of like what like people are giving Optane crap, like the initial Optane, and I agree. For the pricing that we have in the US, Australia, I saw with Tech Yes City, has it for much less in Australia. So it's better there. They figured their stuff out there. 5.2. All right. So we got our folders here. But what that should allow you to do actually is cache. I hope they fixed it at least. I think Linus was saying you can now cache a non-boot drive, because that's where I think your best stuff's going to come from, is a caching an editing drive or a game drive, not your OS drive. And I also haven't seen anybody test caching an SSD with an Optane drive. Like I'm saying, like a SATA SSD caches SATA SSD with an Optane drive. Also with how Optane works, I haven't tried it myself because I don't have one. But I wonder if it works the same as Smart Response, where you can cache an array of drives. So that might be nice if you run, say, RAID array of SATA SSDs, then use an Optane drive as a cache for those, or a hard drive way. Like say you need, like I have in Anthrax, a RAID 10 of 4 3 terabyte drives, and so it's like a RAID 1 and RAID 0, RAID 10. And those are cached by it was an 850 Pro, 128. 64 gigs of that was caching that. Read and writes, because those have very high write endurance. Now it's an 860 Pro, and I got a 256 because I need to use I was using the rest of that, like 64 gigs of it, to offload Adobe caches, like the media cache, thumbnails, stuff like that. It's always better with Adobe if you can get those caches not on the drive you're editing to and not on the drive that Adobe's installed onto. So that's where like a small SSD is nice. And since I can only use 64 gigs for Smart Response, I was using that 128. However, with 4K editing, and it's better to give a bit more of a cache now, I wanted to upgrade it to the 256, and I found an opportunity to do that where that 128 Pro drive was still in decent enough condition and perfect application for something. So yeah, and I wonder if Optane will work that same way. Can I cache an array of drives, or is it still, because originally it was just your boot drive, and nobody mentioned if it had to be a hard drive, like, because I kind of see where, because Optane should be at or better than the performance of NVMe drives, like your standard NVMe drives. And where I see that it's useful is caching a SSD then. Like you get yourself a 1-2 terabyte SSD, or even 500 gigs, but you cache the SSDs or an array of SSDs if possible now, since you can do a secondary device, and you get NVMe like performance. So I would like to try that. I just don't have a system new enough that can take an Optane drive or an Optane drive, and the Optane drives themselves are pretty expensive. And NVMe, like Samsung actually lowered the MSRP of the 970 EVO M Pro before they even came out, which I still can't understand why they would do that. I mean, like, I don't mind, but like, I think they're just trying to corner the market. They have to be, because they, on the top end with NVMe, they have some competition, like WD Black drives, Kingston, OCZ has their OneDrive, but like, it's not any real competition. Samsung's always quicker. They might be a little bit more expensive, but they're crushing it. Whereas then you have Intel with their 600p and I think now 700p or 760p in the low end, better than SATA NVMe, or better than a SATA SSD, but not as good as like your high end NVMe drives. So it takes up less space. Like I run a 600p in Chibi PC that we're on right now, 512 gig. Squeers is currently running a 256 gig 600p in his desktop, but we will be swapping that out when I get back from Portland/Seattle for a 950 Pro. It's the old one from Anthrax. I'm giving them a decent deal on there, since Anthrax is actually going up to a Optane drive. I managed to pick up a 900p, so I'm quite happy about that, by the way. All right. Let's do chipset. So chipset with Intel. What we're gonna want is, the easiest way to get this is literally just typing in chipset. And I've done a number of clean installs lately, so I know that here we go. That this one is ancient. I know that much. But we're going to download it anyway in case the one directly from Intel doesn't work. And then the wait, where'd it go? Okay. So I always download, if you see in my folders here, we got chipset, Intel, and I have you can ignore this one for now, the serial IO, but original from Lenovo, that's the latest one on Lenovo's website, and then we have the latest from Intel. In this case, I already know from doing a number of setups is going to be this one right here, because we have a bunch of ones that are 10.1.1.44 and 10.1.1.45. There is one in here that's oddly labeled 10.13.2, and I thought it might have been a mislabel of 10.1.1.32. It is not. So this is the one you want if you go to Intel's website, at least right now. This changes like even on a month, like weekly, could be daily basis. These have been here for a while, but especially when new platforms come out or large management engine updates for platforms, you'll see new drivers drop on Intel's website. You got to be a little bit tricky how you search them, because Intel only uploads drivers for products they make, and they no longer make motherboards. They do make NUCs, however, and those compute sticks and a couple other products, so that's kind of where you're getting them from. They really don't want you to use these. They want you to go through your manufacturer. But as you saw on Intel's website, the latest one here is from December of 2017. And we all know that this one from January of 2018, or this one from April, like, it's newer. considerably. See, this is 10.1.44. So actually, minus this kind of outlier that's a bunch newer for some reason, at least in version, Lenovo's website's up to date with, like, they're on 45. Lenovo's on 44. And technically Intel's website still lists 44 as being applicable to at least some models. So that's, that's not horrible, I guess. We're going to deal with this serial IO one later. To get management on Intel's website, or the MEI, which is Management Engine Interface, you used to be able to search MEI. Now, if I search that now, you ain't going to get anything. So you search management. Then you select your operating system. And let's throw another tweet out. Right. I do like how XSplit works though, or it takes exclusive windows. Because you didn't know this, but I actually had a different browser window on top of this one, but you couldn't see it. I think that most of that's allowed by like Windows 10. I haven't tried it in Windows 7, but I can tell you streaming apps did not have a lot of the features that this is using previously, like when I was using it. So we gotta look at the things here. We got 3434 and 3460, 3460, 3460, 3460. So the newest one is 3460. We're gonna go with this one. Does not really matter which one. Usually I go with the consumer ones. Sometimes for the HEDT platforms from Intel, like your high-end desktop, you might actually have to download the what do you want to call it, the management interface. You might have to download the, do you call it corporate or enterprise? One of the two. You might have to download that from Intel instead, because depending on which of the HEDT platforms you have, a bunch of those are considered enterprise, or they use the enterprise drivers. X79 was weird because initially, before they changed it all over to full UEFI, it used enterprise drivers. Then after, it uses consumer drivers. And still, my Sabertooth X79, because it wasn't a second gen board, it was a first gen board, still uses some enterprise drivers. Even after that, it's sloppy. Makes life finding drivers not all that easy, or at least maintaining them. Once you figure them out, it's not that hard, and that's why when I keep my old driver folders, because I'll make notes like that in there. Or like say with USB 3 on Windows 8.8 and 10, you don't need USB 3.0 drivers in order to use it. Now, it still might be optimal to download and install those to get better performance out of it, but you don't need them. Whereas in Windows 7, like if you want to install or like use a USB 3.0 on Windows 7, you have to install drivers. It's not built in. Which is important to note. Also, at a certain point, Intel always used to have separate USB 3.0 driver installer, and in the new, after a certain while, they just integrated in the chipset like everything else, which is good, because they started making their own instead of using ASMedia's. So, Now we gotta grab, it looks like there's a firmware update for the management engine that is as of May 14th of 2018. I should have already, if I recall at least, done BIOS update as of June 26th. If not, we'll do it again. I'm pretty sure I already did the firmware update on the SSD. So we got a couple more viewers. Hey guys. If there are anything specific you want me to talk about while I'm grabbing these drivers or want me to comment on, just throw it out in the chat and I'll give my opinion or knowledge, drop some knowledge on that if I can. We might have to update the BIOS on my laptop. I might have to update the firmware on the SSD. It does look like I'm going to have to download the Intel Management Engine firmware. This is definitely a thing that you're not going to, well, you're probably not going to find it directly from Intel, but you're not going to want to download directly from Intel. And the management engine is the thing that kind of controls your entire CPU and chipset thing. There are exploits to that, which is why you can't. This isn't vPro though. I specifically did not, because I remember I cheaped out on this laptop. I specifically did not get the one with vPro in it. Those have even more remote control commands and stuff on them. Oh, and if you're wondering why I went with the V1, not the V2 for the ThinkPad 13, even though the V2 was available, there were a lot of complaints about, at least at the time, this is before external GPU docks were really a thing, there were complaints about Lenovo's Type-C Thunderbolt dock. Whereas I know from my ThinkPad T420, and I know this dock as well, which is just, it's got a dock connector, it works. And I do use the dock, so I wanted to make sure that, I didn't want to mess around. First gen tech, like Linus has talked about it in some of his videos as well, where he would rather be a gen behind and have it stable and working, like he knows it will work and they can do what they want to do, than having the latest stuff. And I'll stand by that. I usually run at least a half a gen behind on my main desktop. So like, I'm still going to be on X99, so I'll be a full gen behind here pretty soon. I will be upgrading to second gen X99 though, or the second gen chips on X99. I really don't want to go to 299 because the chips aren't soldered. There's not too many benefits over X99. But same thing here is I kind of, at the time, I think they ran the same generation CPUs, if I recall. It was still 6000 series. Might have been 7 later in the Gen 2 13. Which, another sad thing, I like my ThinkPad 13. But it's been discontinued. So, yeah, that's kind of sad. Oh, also here you can see latest from Lenovo system update. Lenovo, at least in their ThinkPads, actually has a very good driver update software. So once I get all this installed, all these manually installed, I will be running that once I'm connected to the internet to see if there's any additional updates to the drivers I already have. If so, they do allow you to save them externally, which is what I did in the old folder here. And if they are newer, I will save them externally. And what this little dash guy means, if we go all the way back to the main folder here, we don't have one. Hold on here. Let's go with Alfina. There you go. So normally I put one of these in the folder for when it's not me working on it. And it's just a note in a text document that says dash means not needed. So what that means in the case of what we're working on right now is, which I lost my place. Here you go. The dash means don't use that one. This is newer. In the case of this, I don't know for sure that the system update one's newer right now, so we're just going to kind of bop the system update folder. And I still keep, because like a lot of times I'll get like the one from Intel, and I will get the one directly from Lenovo as well. So in case I go and install the one from Intel and it just throws some errors, flat out doesn't install, I have the one from Lenovo sitting there ready to go. Interesting. So we're gonna name this one older. And we'll name this one old. I'm not 1,000% sure why I have that older one extracted. Maybe I had to grab it because I didn't publish it, because this is like a Skylake serial I/O driver. We can try to search that on Intel, like serial I/O. Bam. All right. So they have some. Do we give them a shot? We got a... This looks like it's the newest one. Serial I/O host controller driver. Interesting. See, and here's the thing though, is I haven't installed these before. So a lot of times it gets kind of tricky, because if you look, it's 30.100.17.26.2. This is 30.100.17.25.1. So even though it says it's the latest, theoretically the older one is newer. So, and the Lenovo one says, does it give us a version? So it doesn't even give us a version for the Lenovo one. It does state March of 2016. Both of the Intel ones are newer. So we may not even need the Lenovo one, potentially. And these are labeled with versions. So you can see 30.100, 17.25.1, 13.100, 17.26.2. So I will try the 26.2 first, since it should be a higher version and thus newer. If that fails, I will try the 17.25.1. If that fails me, I will probably just go to the Intel one, because I know it'll work because it's from Intel, and that's why I keep all of these. Now, what I will do is, if say one of these isn't gonna work, or say the newer one it will work, like this one will work, I will delete this one out of the folder before I file it away. That way, I only need to have the stuff I need. I don't do, like, I will keep the Lenovo one too. Just, I'd rather always be safe than sorry, if that makes sense. And we're actually gonna make it a new folder for this now, since it's actually a thing I can get. Chipset serial I/O, and I will grab from Intel. I don't know what chipset is in the ThinkPad 13, and I never bothered to figure it out. Normally I would write down, like if you can see here, like I have all the parts, you know, your AC8260 for the Wi-Fi card, HD 520 for the graphics, the LAN adapter I can't use, but I have to install a driver. So I have to install a driver, then I just disable it. It's completely pointless in my opinion, but I do enable every single power saving thing, but I find it kind of intriguing that it's on there when it doesn't need to be. Squeeze a message here real quick. Let me new. All right. So we have that. We can bop this folder here. Intel RST is going to be an interesting one. Because generally Intel only puts up RST drive. Oh, go back here. Intel only puts up RST drivers for what? NVMe solid state drive firmware update utility for Windows 10. What the heck? I might try that really quick. I wonder what it'll do. Because, like I said, in the BIOS now, it has NVMe, like NVMe 0 is a boot option. Now, I dropped in my... I have a PNY drive that's like 256, got for like $100. That's like kind of my like extra NVMe drive. I got that, right? And I put it in there, and the BIOS didn't even see it. This is from July of 2018? Holy shit. What? ThinkPad 13. I'll have to get in contact with them. Because, like I said, I dropped one in here. And it didn't show up. It does list ThinkPad 13 in here. Now, I think it should list ThinkPad 13 Gen 2. Like, see how it says second generation here? So, my ThinkPad 13 might actually be... I mean, I don't have time to figure this out by Wednesday or whatever. It's Sunday night now. I don't have time to figure that out, you know, in the next couple days. But this is becoming even more interesting. Since there's a solid state drive firmware update utility for Windows 10 for it, and there's a boot option in the BIOS, and at least the latest BIOS is on there. I think I might have the latest one already. So, but it's specifically about a specific Toshiba model. There's a 512, it says. Let's look that model up. I wonder if it's that tiny one. Like, it would replace your Wi-Fi card, I think, or something. Oh, it's in the WW WAN slot. So the 3G modem, or 4G now, it would be modem. Yeah, I will have to get in contact with them because it was not shipped with NVMe. NVMe is now in the BIOS. There's literally a firmware update utility for a Toshiba SSD that could be in there. I'll have to pop it apart and see. I already had it apart the other day, but dude, this is getting interesting. You guys are discovering things as I am. So I'm gonna download all of this stuff just in case it gets pulled, because like I said, this didn't have NVMe. It makes sense though, because the platform should have it, and I will grab the README too. Save page as. Save. All right. Excuse me. Yeah, that's super interesting. In the meantime, what's that thing? NVMe solid state drive update utility. Alright, I'll pop that in here. And hopefully not this TXT file Ooh. There are Samsung drives listed, Intel drives listed, and Lenovo drives listed. I think that Toshiba one is the important one. Excuse me. Is the important one though, because I think if I recall, it's a half height. Like it's really small, and the controller and the NVMe, the NAND are on the same chip on it. Like it doesn't require, like most SSDs have a controller, and then RAM or cache for that controller, and then have the actual NAND on the NAND dies. In this case, I believe it's all integrated into one chip, if I recall correctly. This might not be the one I'm thinking of, so I could be wrong. But this gives me hope. Heck, I might even be able to run 2 drives in there. And use one as an editing drive and one as a... I really miss having 2 drives for my T420. I'm just used to, on all my systems, at least having like a boot SSD and a hard drive or something like that. Like just 2 places to put stuff. And no, I'm not going to partition it. That just creates issues, especially once again, EVO drives, caching, rapid, all the other fancy things they do. They don't it just messes with their ability. The more standard you use those, like boot drive, let them rip. They're great. The more you start doing weird stuff with EVO drives, the less point, in my opinion, there is. Like they're great drop-in replacement as a boot drive. And I love the Pro drives, actually. I love those. But they're expensive. Your average human is not going to buy those. So this is RST. I nabbed it. The one thing, like I was saying, is that dude, still catching my eye is that NVMe thing. I'm gonna have to look if there is a WW or WWAN, or how would you, because it's WLAN, I guess. Slot available on that motherboard. I didn't see one in there. So who knows? I know I didn't order mine with that as an option. Pretty sure it could have been ordered with it. And that's if you're running, actually how on my T420 I had 3 SSDs, because the MPCIe slot on the T420 accepted SATA based, what would you even call those? MSATA? They accepted MSATA in the WWAN slot. So I swapped my disk drive out for a SSD. My boot drive was an SSD, and then I had that WWAN slot as a third SSD, and that one booted Windows 7. And then the other drive that was where the hard drive should be was my Windows 8 and later 10 boot drive, and then the disk was a temporary larger SSD, so that you could have like your user data on that, and then both would access that. And you could access, like, that was kind of like my temporary working drive, if that makes sense. So here's the thing. You got to make sure that you get... See, if you're getting RAID, there's RST RAID and just RST. Those are 2 different things. RST driver, which this laptop needs, controls the storage and caching and stuff like that, like how the storage controller works. Not all computers require the actual driver for that to work. It'll just use the Intel one without much issue. Lenovo likes to actually use Intel's driver. But we're not running RAID. So... So this specific driver supports system acceleration Optane memory, which isn't technically RAID anymore. Whereas in order to do what they call that, I just said it earlier, the caching on there, smart response, that you had to have your controller in RAID mode, which caused issues. configuration of RAID 0110, and Intel RST. So, and that's what we want to be downloading right now. It's just the, and I always get the zips if you're wondering. Usually there's an exe inside of the zip. The exe is just a self-extracting archive. Now, that's for a lot of this stuff, the self-extracting one can be detrimental, especially with graphics drivers, because Intel wants you to use the graphics driver from your manufacturer, which is old as shit. And Intel's actually been somewhat keeping up with their driver updates for graphics. So you have to override it in Device Manager. And you need the zip then, because the exe, obviously being self-extracting and installing, doesn't let you manually install the driver. So that's why I generally grab. And if you notice, this setup.rst.zip did not have the version in the like the name of the file, so I gave it to it. That way, if I go back here, or if I have an issue, or this one doesn't work, or like in the future one of them doesn't work, I know I can go back and always name your files. It's important. What are we doing now? One link plus dock driver. I wonder if that's even. Let's duplicate this. And then we will search one link plus dock driver. Yep, so even here, it's listed as 13 Gen 2. So this is saying that my laptop should support NVMe. Not this specifically, but that firmware update. Now, Lenovo may restrict it to how do you want to say this? To those drives, like see there was those Toshiba ones they added. They might restrict it just those Toshiba drives. Otherwise, it might be the Toshiba ones plus the Samsung and Lenovo ones previously specified. There's a bunch of this other shit we're gonna need too, because like hotkeys, that's like the function keys on the laptop. I'm trying to see if I can find the old dock driver, but it's not looking like it, because this is looking at my specific model, and I did not buy my dock with the laptop because I could get it cheaper significantly on Amazon, and it's official dock. It's just that it was cheaper to do that than buying it with the laptop. They surely discount accessories when you get them with the laptop. So we're actually going to switch to the big screen here. I'm going to unplug this puppy, shut it down. If you're wondering how to properly shut down a Windows 10 computer, I say properly or fully, not properly, I guess. You want to hold Shift when you do restart and then turn off computer, because otherwise it does fast boot, unless you have that turned off, which on a laptop I don't turn it off, but on, say, something like a desktop, I will always turn off fast boot. That's the in Windows fast boot, not the BIOS fast boot, but a lot of times with an overclocked system, I generally have more luck turning off fast boot in the BIOS too. But on the laptop, I want it to actually fully shut down. The only way to do that is, like say I'm taking it apart, because of, I don't want it on while it's apart. I need you to do the Shift restart and then turn off. That'll actually turn it off, not put it in fast boot mode. sorry. Normally, I said we were doing drivers here, but the articles and the BIOS that I had earlier, like I was talking with Squeers, and I was trying to figure out if it supported NVMe, because theoretically it could. It's a matter of if it did or not. We have the cheapo Husky set, because I just had this apart, but I just brought the screwdriver downstairs, and I have some nice Filo, F-I-L-O. They're German. If you know the correct way to pronounce that, throw it in the chat comments. They sell them at Fleet Farm around here, which is nice. And the other thing I like is they sell them not just in, a lot of times they sell it, like, you have to get the Philips, like, 000 and 1, or whatever. You can buy that kit initially if you want, or just buy them separately, or what like I did is I bought the kit, and then when I wear out a screwdriver, I can just buy the one I wore out, because like the number 1 is going to wear out way quicker than any other one, since that's generally what you use for or taking apart laptops and other like laptop-like devices, or like NVMe drives in your desk. The newer computers are going to be shit. Am I going to have to? There we go. This probably sounds horrible to you guys, but it's literally just less than 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 screws in the back of here, bam, off. This is part of the reason why I bought a ThinkPad 13. I really don't see where the WWAN slot is. Oh, and it looks like Squeers is ready to play some Destiny 2 here. Like, I don't even see room for a slot. Here's for those interested. This is part of the reason why I got the ThinkPad 13. 2 RAM slots, easily accessible. There's the M.2 SATA slot. You can see my drive in there. Those are easily swappable, and like I said, it was like 9 screws to pop all this apart. So that's like nothing compared to most. Like, and this is technically an Ultrabook. It even has the Ultrabook certification. Most Ultrabooks of this thinness require way, way, way more to take apart and upgrade. Or if something were to fail, or sometimes I literally just need to yank the drive out to back it up, etc. Yeah, I'll have to do some more research on this to see if there is a WAN slot someplace. But it's definitely listed as being NVMe compatible. Maybe it's restricted to Lenovo certified drives, because they'll do that with Wi-Fi cards. And the reasoning for that is when you're a huge company and you have a huge Wi-Fi network deployed, you have to register it with the FCC. And if Lenovo already went through and certified every one of their Wi-Fi cards in their laptop for you with the FCC, you don't have to have each one of your laptops individually certified with the FCC, because the chips in here have already been certified. Whereas if they weren't, you would then have to have each one of your, at least chips in the laptop, if not the entire laptop, certified for interference and stuff like that, and they restrict the chips that can go in here, because they've only certified certain chips in their laptops with the FCC. So there's a list. You can get around that with BIOS mods. I've never bothered because usually there's a pretty decent, if not good, Intel one on the list. Just buy that and chuck it in there. Well, guys, on this somewhat disappointing note, and I didn't get to finish doing drivers, I'm gonna let you guys go as I'm gonna go shoot some things with squares. And we'll see you in the next one. This will for sure be done before I head out on my trip, but I don't know if I will stream again with it. If you saw this, hope you enjoyed it. If you have comments, throw them down below. Please subscribe, follow on Twitch. You can always hit me up on Twitter @TheProfosist. The website is the-tech-exchange.com. We'll see you in the next one.